I'm Ekwo, and this is Outbound, a podcast by EF Education First that showcases transformative travel stories that defy our expectations, challenge our assumptions, and teach us something new about the world and ourselves.
I'm dressed in a flight attendant uniform right now because it's Halloween, and it's an authentic flight attendant uniform. I was a flight attendant for Delta for just a little under 2 years, I guess. At the same time, I was a graduate student at the University of Chicago. It was like leading a double life. My focus at the University of Chicago was East Asian languages and civilizations, and I was working on my PhD. So I got far enough along in my research that I didn't have to be there for coursework anymore, and I just needed to go. Basically, I needed to get to Japan as often as possible and do fieldwork. So I thought, why don't I just become a flight attendant and I can do research on my layovers in Japan? So I did, but it didn't actually work out that way. The layovers were 20 hours in Tokyo, so it's just not enough time to go and do research. But it was really fun, and I would be leading a class. I was the TA and then eventually an instructor at the University of Chicago, and I would be leading a class and wrapping it up and looking at the clock really carefully, because as soon as they left the classroom, I needed to run to the bathroom and put on my uniform and rush out to Midway to catch a commuter flight to Minneapolis and go work a flight for Delta.
皆様、デルタ航空をご利用いただき、誠にありがとうございます。
It's basically like, thank you for flying Delta.
This is Carly. Carly loves Japan. Today on Outbound, we're going to show you how this cross-cultural infatuation started. Then, we'll take you to Tokyo, where, amid the steam of sentō hot tubs, Carly struggles to get Japan to love her back.
I grew up in Richmond, Virginia. My mom is from a really tiny rural town in Kentucky. My dad is from a town in the Appalachian Mountains in Virginia. So there's really no reason for me to be interested in Japan. When I went to get my PhD, I told my mom, and she goes, "Oh, you're still doing the Japan thing?" So I said, yeah, I'm gonna do the Japan thing for 8 to 9 years. My mom hates it when I tell that story about her. She's like, you gotta stop telling that story. They get it, and they're proud of it. And around my hometown, people know about it. My interest started because I participated in a cultural exchange program in high school that was 40 students from Japan and 40 students from the United States meeting up at Princeton University for a summertime cultural exchange. And we all just became the best of friends, and I got completely fascinated by Japanese culture, and I wanted to stay in touch with them, and I wanted to surprise them by learning Japanese. And the timing was perfect because I went to college just a little bit later and started taking every class I possibly could that was related to Japan. My major was religious studies, focus in Buddhism, and East Asian studies. It's funny, like my identity got really tied up with Japan. I studied abroad in Japan my second year in college, and I came back just more able to be my own individual type of person, whereas before I just kind of tried to blend in a little bit. When I came back from Japan, I was like, this is who I am. Yeah, I'm not Japanese, but I love Japan. And here's what I love about it. And I kind of was wearing Japanese style fashion, and I cut my hair really short, like the Japanese mullet type look, and I pulled it off. And people just started thinking, okay, Carly equals Japan. Oh, Carly, Japan girl, okay. And it just really became such a huge part of my identity. The reason I love Japan is because, and have continued to love Japan, is because of the personal level. The Japanese friends I've made and the Japanese people I have connected with so closely are the reason why my love for Japan stays alive the way that it does. And there's nothing better than going to dinner at a Japanese household. I mean, it lasts for hours and hours, and you sit and talk and laugh and have drinks, and that's why I love Japan. Moments like that.
Carly moved to Tokyo to do research for her PhD on a Fulbright scholarship.
So I was living in Tokyo, really close to this area that's just constantly alive, Ikebukuro, where there are tons of great karaoke bars, and the city never sleeps. And I lived in a really quiet neighborhood just next to it, lived in Mejuro, and I went to Ryukyo University, where I was a special researcher. The broader theme of what I was researching is loyalty and national identity as related to propaganda. So I was curious, how does propaganda actually work? Does propaganda brainwash us, and what does brainwashing mean? And is it possible to change a person's loyalty and influence the loyalty they feel for a cause or for a nation through propaganda? And the way I decided to research this larger question was by looking at Americans who were in Japan during World War II. So a lot of people have heard about people of Japanese descent who were in America during World War II and how they were treated and how many of them were sent to internment camps. But the flip side of that story is there were a lot of Americans who were in Japan when Pearl Harbor happened. And thousands of these people were of Japanese descent. They were American-born and held American passports or dual citizenship. But for whatever reason, they were in Japan when Pearl Harbor happened. And then there were also non-Japanese people there, merchants, missionaries, that sort of thing. But when December 7th or December 8th, if you're in Japan, rolls around, 1941, all passenger traffic stops. So there's no getting back and forth wherever you are. If you're on the Japan side, if you're in America, there's no getting back and forth. And so what I was studying is what happened to these Americans. What happened to these Americans after that moment? And what I found was that people who were not of Japanese descent were typically rounded up, put into internment facilities or, old monasteries, schools, and kept under surveillance until they could be sent home on these exchange ships that went out later on during the war. Some people were just put on house arrest or kind of watched carefully. But if these people were of Japanese descent, meaning that they had Japanese blood, then it was an entirely different story. And they were actually treated as if they were Japanese citizens and not American citizens at all. And if they were female, they might be sent to help in the factories, building bombs or building weapons that would, potentially be used against their family members back in the United States. And if they were male, they could be conscripted into the Japanese army. And there are stories of soldiers who feared running into friends or even family members, brothers, on the battlefield fighting for opposite sides. And it's not a well-known history at all. There are very few people who know this story. And I wanted to research what loyalty meant, what happened to these people. How did they feel? How did they feel when this was happening? Did they think about their national loyalty? Did they think more about their parents and their families? What were the propaganda posters cueing them to think about Americans? And did they associate that with their former neighbors, friends, family members? And so I was looking at the physical and discursive climate of Japan during World War II and trying to understand what people were seeing, what tastes they were tasting, what they were hearing, and what they thought, what they were being taught about Americans.
To advance her research, Carly needed to find people who were alive during World War II and convince them to share their personal accounts of what that time was like in Japan. This task would prove to be a formidable challenge.
It's a lot harder to meet people who are of a different generation from yourself. I mean, they're not going to be on the campus where I'm walking around every day. So I had to try to think of ways to meet old people. And already it's hard to make friends. And when you're a foreigner in Japan, it's just all that more lonely, because unlike a lot of other nations where people just make friends pretty easily, in Japan, people would assume that they'd look at my face, they'd see a white woman and they'd think, she probably doesn't, speak Japanese. And I don't really feel confident about speaking English right now. So let's just both be quiet, There's just not that spark of curiosity, of the ease with which people can start conversations in other parts of the world. So I started getting involved with, various volunteer organizations that were dedicated to educating students about what life was like during World War II. But the way that I really tried to break into it was going to the public baths in Japan, which are the sentō, the penny baths. And a lot of travelers to Japan know about onsen, which are hot springs, outdoor hot springs, communal bathing. But it's the sentō practice in Japan is lesser known. You can envision a spa, but they're almost always pretty rustic. I mean, it's a part of Japanese culture that is popular with all ages, but really maintained by the older generation. And so, you know how when you go to your grandma's house, it just looks a little like not as updated as what you're used to in a modern kitchen or something like that. So imagine a spa that's, just got a little bit of age to it, and it's segregated. The men have one side and the women have another side. You walk in and you either pay the person who's manning the desk, or sometimes you can buy a ticket from a vending machine, and then you go into your male or female locker room, strip down completely, put everything in a locker, and then you open a sliding door and go into the bath. And the bath itself is also segregated, male and female. And a lot of times they are beautiful inside. They have murals on the wall of Mount Fuji or of cherry blossoms, or they have really pretty tile mosaics. Step one is that you wash yourself really thoroughly. You sit down at a little seated shower and you just shower down, use all your soap, get completely clean. Then you rinse off all the soap. And then you step into one of the hot baths. A lot of the sentō I went to have different themes. So one day they'll have lavender baths and all of the hot waters are scented like lavender for the day. Or for Valentine's Day one time, they had white chocolate scented bath water. So you go in, some baths are really, really piping hot, some have bubbles, and you just kind of transition. You just enjoy maybe 10 minutes sitting in one bath, and then you plunge into the ice cold bath, and then you just kind of rotate around. The thing about sentō is that it's a place to socialize. And where you and I might say to our friends, do you want to go to a bar, or do you want to go play soccer in the park or something like that? Actually, Japanese people will often say, do you want to go to the sentō? Do you want to go to this onsen? Want to check out this new place? And they'll go and have a soak together and just chat. And I've done it with some of my Japanese friends and their families before. And it's just so different from what we're used to. I mean, it's not really a practice in America to go and get completely naked and just hang out with your buddies. But once you kind of get used to it, it's relaxing and fun. And it's a great way to explore a city because every sentō is different from the next. And you just meet the people who have probably been going there regularly for decades. So I started to think that this might be the way that I could meet old people, old friends in Japan. I was familiar with onsen and had been to onsen before, but I hadn't really explored. I hadn't been to very many sentō. So I just started going to the local one in my neighborhood and going regularly. But I still found that people didn't really talk to me, even when I went. They would just kind of look my direction and not really spark up a conversation. So I thought, all right, I need to figure out what's the next step. How do I get them to start talking to me?
Carly needed Japanese people to open up to her for her research. She needed specific accounts of this nuanced chapter of wartime history, but she also needed this for herself. During our interview, Carly was absolutely glowing with her love for Japan and Japanese culture. And as she said, from the time that she was a teenager, she was the Japan girl. So it's easy to see that while living in Japan, when she was seemingly brushed off or treated as an outsider, it hurt. So as Carly looks for the key to real access to the Japanese culture, she's advancing her research, but she's also looking for acceptance and maybe validation. One day, the owner of Carly's local sentō struck up a conversation with her that put her on the right path.
He and I had started chatting a little bit. We were speaking in Japanese, but he said, "Oh, you speak Japanese. You know, there's another foreigner who speaks Japanese." It's kind of like when you meet somebody who went to the same college as you, and there are thousands of people, and they're like, "Oh, do you know John?" You know, it's kind of like, "Oh, you're also white and you speak Japanese. You're bound to know each other." And we didn't know each other, but he introduced us. He asked Stephanie and me to participate in this bean throwing festival where you welcome the change of the seasons by throwing beans. It sounds crazy, but it's just a tradition, and it's good luck. You throw beans and you scare away the demons of the old years and welcome the new year. So he thought it would be really cool to get some foreigners involved. And so he invited Stephanie and me and Stephanie's boyfriend and my husband, who was visiting, to go and participate and throw the beans. We had fun. Stephanie and I threw beans together, and we started talking about sentō. And she knows everything there is to know, and she is a sentō aficionado. And she was living in Japan originally as a student, but then she got a job there and just stayed on. And she loved exploring sentō. She was learning Tokyo and beyond, well beyond Tokyo, by going to sentō and researching them, visiting them, trying them out. So we were talking about it, and she said, let's go to sentō together. And so we did. We went to the one where the guy had introduced us, actually. We went to sentō together. What she did was she speaks to people when she walks in, which I had never done. You open the sliding door, as I said, and you enter. And I had always just tried to be as quiet as I possibly could because I didn't want to bother anybody. I'm like, I'm foreign. They're going to think I don't know how to do this. They're going to be looking me up and down. I just want to kind of keep quiet here as I walk in. But she would just open the sliding door and she would say, "Konbanwa" or "Konnichiwa." And everybody would just kind of echo it, "Konnichiwa." That's what they do. That's what Japanese people do when they walk in to a quiet sentō room. She also brought a lot with her. She brought a lot of soaps. She worked for a cosmetic company, so she had all of this really great product that she would bring with her. And she would sit and just shower and shower and shower for a really long time, just completely suds up. And so that's another thing I learned from her. So I learned to greet people as I walk in and to bring all my goodies and look like I really know what I'm doing and just kind of luxuriate in the shower part for a nice long time. And then it's just about your confidence level. Just go around, try everything in the sentō, and then strike up conversations with people. People don't assume that you speak their language if you don't look like them. I mean, honestly, in America, they don't look like each other. So we can never assume that somebody's foreign. But in Japan, if someone's not Asian, it's easy to, to think this person doesn't speak Japanese. So if I could show them that I did speak Japanese and I wanted to speak Japanese with them, sure, we'd start talking, we'd have conversations. And so that's how I started meeting people, meeting old people. I finally met old people in Japan thanks to sentō and being more confident in sentō.
Once Carly learned these small but important details of sentō culture, she felt a new sense of belonging in the sentō. And this feeling extended to all of Carly's interactions in Tokyo and gave a new balance to her relationship with Japan.
I thought, now that I've found a way to connect to people, I could live in Japan. I could stay here. Because previously, it had been too isolating. It had been me walking down the street with a chip on my shoulder, just projecting on people all the stereotypes I assumed they were throwing my way. Without even interacting with them, I would just look them in the eyes and think, wow, these people really, they're never going to speak Japanese to me, or they are making all these assumptions about me, or even just walking down the street, like they're going to go to the right because Americans walk to the right. But I know that we all go to the left when we walk past each other. So I would always kind of like go back and forth and almost run into people. And I was getting so frustrated. It was just piling up, so frustrated that I couldn't break down a barrier. And then when I finally started making these friends by going to sentō, I just thought, okay, it is possible in some way to connect to these people in Japan who have been just kind of not seeing me for months and months. And so I just kind of thought, it's a shame that I'm leaving in a few months. After that, after I felt accepted, I could be more confident and I could just feel a different connection to the country. Not like I was an insider. I'm never going to be an insider in Japan. That'll never be the case. Even though I'm a specialist in wearing kimono and how to tie the belt of the kimono, the obi, and I've done all this practice and tried to become as knowledgeable as I can about Japanese culture. And I'll never quite be there because of authenticity and the role race plays in authenticity, which is fascinating to me as well. But I'll never quite be there. But I had a different confidence level because I thought I knew sentō culture because I knew sentō etiquette. I know about the basic rules of, okay, you have to wash all your soap off beforehand. If you have tattoos, you can't go inside. Like some of the basic etiquette I knew about. But there's a big difference between knowing the etiquette, knowing the rules, and then actually being able to practice them like a local. And that's where I think I ended up. There's a reason for studying abroad, there's a reason for living in all these different parts of the world. And it's about more than research. It's about the way people connect. That's kind of how I felt when I made that transition. Like I said, always I will fall just shy of living thoroughly as Carly in Japan. But it's almost like I kind of found a Japanese Carly. I found a Japanese version of me.
After Carly discovered how to be Japanese Carly, she saw her relationship with Japan in a new light. Carly finished her PhD and went on to find a career with EF, building educational travel programs to Japan, a job that allows her to travel to Japan all the time.
I'm going back in just a few days.
Really?
Yeah.
Just a few days?
Yep, just a few days. I'm leaving next Wednesday. I'll be back. I'm probably going to several sentō. I'll only be in Japan for 4 days. So I'll be very pruny, but it'll be fun.
This study in sentō is brought to you by EF Education First, the world leader in international education. Outbound is hosted by Equo Etsy, produced by me, Meg Martineau, and sound designed by Billy Woraznik. The intro music is composed by Ryan Jackson. If you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe and also rate us in iTunes. If you want to submit your own transformative travel story, you can do so on our website at www.eftours.com/podcast, where you can also listen to all of our episodes and find out more about EF. If you ever have any feedback or just want to say hi to the team, you can email us at outbound@ef.com.
大学に卒業してから
はい。
北海道に行きたかった。
あー
でも、ピースコールプログラムをしました。
残念ですよね。
そうね
すごいね。
ジェットプログラムをしたかったです。
したかったですか。すごい、
うん
そうですか。すごい。私、一回北海道行きました。
そうね。
すっごく綺麗なところですよ。
今、日本語を勉強しまい How to say if I wanna? Is that right? 勉強する Is that practice?
Practice? 練習する。
練習
練習
し
したた
いで。
いですす。じゃあ一緒に練習しましょう。
ありがとう。
すごいびっくりしました。
ありがとう。
上手上手。